Welcome to Our Region's Business with your host, Bill Flanagan.
Today on Our Region's Business, move over Apollo 11. A Pittsburgh startup prepares for its own moonshot. Plus 2 sports partnerships in our region that are worlds apart. The Pittsburgh Knights join forces with Replay FX to add esports to the biggest arcade event in America, coming up right here in our region. And the Pittsburgh Riverhounds and Allegheny Health Network break ground on a new health and sports complex. But first, 50 years after Apollo 11 went where no man or woman had ever gone before, a Pittsburgh company called Astrobotic prepares to return to the moon with a robot from Carnegie Mellon along for the ride. I caught up with the CEO recently in downtown Pittsburgh. Well, John Thornton of Astrobotic, I guess congratulations, it's finally getting real.
Oh, thank you. We are so thrilled to be on contract with NASA to take their payloads to the surface of the moon.
Well, and what does that mean exactly? What is Astrobotic going to be doing for NASA?
So we have 14 payloads from NASA that are going to be attached to our lander, and we're going to take them up to the surface of the moon, and they're paying us $79 million to get that done.
Wow, okay, that's a pretty good contract.
Yes, yeah, it's pretty darn exciting. So we are now fully funded, and countdown has started for the launch.
Okay, and we're talking a couple of years at this point?
That's right. So June and July of 2021 is our target launch date.
Well, and this is really becoming a Pittsburgh thing in a lot of ways. It's not just Astrobotic, but it's kind of connected to your roots as well at Carnegie Mellon.
That's right. Carnegie Mellon just won a $2 million contract to study the caves at the moon.
Okay.
And the caves are incredibly interesting because if you can get inside of it, it's natural protection from the elements. And the elements on the moon are the radiation that comes from the sun. You get the meteorites that come down. There's no atmosphere to burn them up. And then it's super hot during the day and super cold at night. So it's above boiling during the day and liquid nitrogen at night.
So you need a special machine to be able to deal with those kinds of conditions.
That's right. Or you could find one of these caves, and that's what Carnegie Mellon is taking a look at.
Okay. And then there's another Carnegie Mellon connection as well, which has to do with the arts.
That's right. Yeah, Carnegie Mellon is sending the first art to the surface of the moon and bringing a whole package around that, and it's like remarkable the detail and what they put into that.
Well, and we actually we featured them on the television show probably a couple of years ago now. It's like an entire museum in a little box. Right?
That's right. And it's I think it's a great mark for Pittsburgh and mark for the country to have something like that attached to the mission. And I think it's going to be something that when we go back to visit the landing site sometime in the future, that's going to be an important piece to take a look at.
So Carnegie Mellon's going to build a rover to go there, and the Moon Ark's going to go along for the ride, but somehow they've got to get there, and that's where Astrobotic fits in.
That's right. That's what we do. So we're like a delivery service to take payloads up to the surface of the moon. So think like a railroad to the moon. It all starts with transportation. So we build the lander here in Pittsburgh. We buy a launch to get to space. We put our lander on top of that launch vehicle, and then from there, we go out to the surface of the moon.
So you buy a launch. So you use a commercial service, a rocket, to get to the moon?
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, so we're going to launch out of Florida, likely, and we're actually hitching a ride on a launch. So we're sharing a ride with somebody else, and we're what's called the secondary. So we're going to be deployed second once we get up to space. And then our lander takes over and goes the rest of the way out. So it's what's called a single-stage spacecraft. So there's no separations or anything else. We go out to the moon, we drop into lunar orbit, and we can actually leave some payloads in lunar orbit, and then we descend down to the surface. And then once we're on the surface, we become the local utility. So we provide power and communications for the payloads that come with us. So it's a one-stop, all-service included service for our customers.
It's quite a vision. You've been at it for how long now at Astrobotic?
It's been 12 years, so it's been a long time in the making.
Well, and you think about that, bringing an idea like this to market, you must have really patient investors.
Yeah, actually, we have some investors, but we're actually mostly driven by revenues. So we've had 29, or actually 30 contracts now from NASA to date, and that's been one of our sources of revenue. And then we've also taken down payments from customers that are interested in flying.
Okay.
So we've largely grown the company on revenue, which is something we are really, really proud of.
But revenue for doing what? Because you've been developing this technology along the way. So what are they getting value out of the contracts?
So the contracts for NASA, we have a series of R&D contracts that we do. So it's everything from exploring caves, we actually have a contract around that, to precision landing on the surface of the moon. We won a $10 million contract from NASA for that last year, and a whole array of different SBIRS, TTR kinds of contracts over the years. So that's fueled the company, kept us going, and created enough resource for us to create the market and ultimately sell into the market for lunar payload delivery to the moon.
How many of you are there at Astrobotic now?
We're now up to 21,
okay.
and that's an all-time high. high for us, and because of this big win with NASA, we're going to be going up to about 60 to maybe even 70 people.
Wow, that's incredible. And Pittsburgh, our region, a good place to be doing what you're doing. We seem a little unlikely in some ways.
Yeah, Pittsburgh doesn't have a strong space activity going on here, but there are some pockets.
It's been about 50 years, I think, since
it's been a
lot
while.
of that was happening.
But we're here because of the robotics in town. So ultimately, space robotics is our core, and we import space from out of town, and we home grow robotics, and that makes the world's best space robotics.
Okay, so a lot of logic being here. So what's the timing from this point forward? I mean, how real is this really? Do you have an actual launch date yet?
So countdown clock has started now.
Okay.
So we are looking at a June, July of 2021 launch date and landing date.
Okay.
So it's coming up. It's about 2 years out. So we are scrambling to finish the design, and then we're going to be ordering all of our long lead items and then building it in a clean room here in Pittsburgh.
Pretty cool to have this sort of come to life and become real around the 50th anniversary of Apollo 11.
It is perfect timing. And I think what's momentous about this is that this is the first time America will go back since the Apollo era. And it's also going to be marking the first time the commercial industry is going to be landing on the surface of the moon. And we're bringing with us 7 other nations other than the U.S. with us. So in some sense, it's kind of like their Apollo moment for their nation. And I think that's a really exciting thing for Pittsburgh and an exciting thing for the nation to be leading the rest of the world back to the moon.
So you mentioned the commercial aspect of this. What makes this a business opportunity? You know, historically, it was about beating the Soviets to the moon, and it was about science, I guess. Why is there a business in what you're doing? So
there's a whole array of payloads all over the world that want to fly to the moon for various reasons. So some is science exploration, some is resource development at the poles. So you can turn water into rocket fuel. That could be one of the first commodities in space, and rocket fuel in space is really, really valuable. Another one is infrastructure. So we've got folks building communication networks on the surface of the moon, for example, and some are just marketing, just for fun kind of thing. So it's a whole array of different objectives from the different customers, but it's kind of like what's in the back of a delivery truck. All different ideas going on in there, but we're basically the delivery truck that makes the whole thing possible to go to the moon.
You're going to be scaling up, so I assume it means you're going to need a few good men and women to help you do this.
Indeed. We have a ton of openings right now for engineers of all different types. Space experience is nice, but not necessary for every position, and we're, again, adding about 40 positions to the company, so we're actively looking for great talent.
Well, exciting time. The company's called Astrobotic. John Thornton, thank you so much. Congratulations.
Oh, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Well, next up, from outer space to the world of sports, the Pittsburgh Riverhounds and the Allegheny Health Network expand their partnership promoting soccer and sports medicine. Please stay with us.